evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it on our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so you can follow along. And our recap tonight will start on page 129, where it starts out, "The opposite may happen," and it will end on page 131 at "Make up the deficiency." And our study portion for tonight will start on 131, where it says "At the very beginning," and it will end on page 133 at "Demonstrate his omnipotence." And I have two announcements. The first is this Saturday, this group will be having a service workshop for anyone and everyone who is interested in service for this group, but a lot of the Zoom stuff that we'll be teaching also carries into other meetings. So if you're interested in getting involved, getting in service, picking up some service commitments, even just a little bit here and there, we will be opening up the room on Saturday the 22nd, and that will be at 3:30 Eastern Time, 2:30 Central Time, and you can back up the time for your own time zone. And then on March 17th, we will be having a group conscience, and that's a Monday evening at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, and you can back up the time zones to where you are. And if you're interested in becoming a home group member of the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Group, Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group, please let me know by chat. Anyone who attends our meeting is allowed and welcome to attend our home group conscience, but only home group members of record prior to the start of the meeting are eligible for voting. Does anybody else have any announcements?
My name is Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic, and everybody might not catch it in the chat, but it will be there the first Monday of this coming month, March. We will also be having our 4th step workshop, and if you've never been to it, it's phenomenal. If you need to do a 4th step, it's phenomenal. And if you happen to sponsor people and want to help them through a 4th step, guess what? It's phenomenal. Pickly phenomenal. Thank you.
Okay, so
Good evening, everyone. I'm recovered alcoholic, and my name is Shayna. Welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation, followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing, as not to distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. A friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share. We will call on you in the order your hands are raised.
From the foreword to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are focus your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God and let the craziness of the day drift away, and ask God to help you focus on the study.
Okay, and let's have our fog light prayer. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And let's have our secretary's report. Come on in, Heather.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Heather, and I am your recovered alcoholic secretary. I have asked Terry to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what exactly it means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Terry.
Thank you, Miss Heather. Okay, I'm Terry, recovered pickle chip. Recovered, we are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered but not cured, that presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of Alcoholics center in his mind rather than in the body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you so much for reading, Terry. Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of this, the chat will be disabled during the study portion. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a big book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX of Alcoholics Who Came to AA and Really Tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapsed, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time? Welcome. And then the recovered alcoholics, these are your potential sponsors. All right. Is there anyone celebrating a milestone this week? If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time is questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo or PayPal posted in the chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. Thank you. See you next week, and thank you for letting me be your recovered alcoholic secretary.
Thank you, Heather. And thank you, Terry, both of you. And welcome to our new folks, and welcome back to everyone returning. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself, nor your reason for being here, if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
And before we begin our big book study, last week we reviewed Tradition 3, and tonight let's take a quick look at Tradition 4. Please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I invite the lovely Larry, our traditionalist.
Hey, I'm Larry. Tradition 4. Tradition 4 says, short form says, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. Tradition 4 in the long form says, with respect to its own affairs, each AA group should be responsible to no other authority than its own conscience. But when its plans concern the welfare of neighboring groups also, these groups ought to be consulted. And no group, regional committee, or individual should ever take any action that might greatly affect AA as a whole without conferring with the trustees of General Service Board, or such issues are common. Welfare is paramount. I've had several interesting aspects of this tradition. Number one, the group in which that I am associated with is started out of Tradition 4 during the COVID season. The intergroup in which I am involved in, during COVID, decided that it would be best and that all groups in our area, it would be best that they would close its doors until more information would be known about the COVID situation. Well, that's fine. They got on the radio, they made their announcement, and which I did not agree that they should have done, but they did. They put it on a podcast. They made the announcement on public radio to groups around, and but the head of our group was at the meeting, and so we came to our meeting, the next meeting we had, and all we had was a sign on the door saying that our group will not be meeting until further notice. Well, there were a couple of us that had keys to the facility, so we opened up and we had a meeting anyway. And we did this for two reasons. Number one, we immediately, when we got inside, took a group conscience of how many people wanted to have a meeting, and how many people wanted. If they didn't, they had the ability to leave, and there were one or two that decided that they would not attend the meeting, and the rest of us continued to meet for about 8 weeks, at which time the head of the group found out we were meeting, and 3 of the leaders of the group came down and personally just stopped us from meeting. I mean, we probably didn't have to, but it was going to be a fight, and we decided we would walk away. There was no sense in putting a black place on AA, have a brawl or whatever. We just walked off, and we found another place to have a meeting. We met on phone lines until we could find a place, and that's how our group got started. It was through a 4th tradition. You have to have a group conscience to actually close a meeting down. It is through a group conscience. And that's how we felt about it. And so, that's number one. Number two, that I just recently had one of the groups from our area contact me. They asked me when I was meeting, what times our meeting was. And the reason that was the same reason they wanted to make sure that they had to change their meeting times. They needed to make a change, and they knew that we had our meetings on Sunday, and they need to change theirs earlier in the day, and they didn't want to be in competition of our meeting schedule. So they contacted us. It was, and so we met with them, and it was very cordial, and we worked out times so that both of us could attend each other's meetings if we wanted to. It's going to be tight, but actually, I could leave my meeting and go directly to their meeting and make it. And they did that out of because of the 4th tradition. They were not wanting to be in conflict, with anything that we were doing. I thought it was very professional on their part. We're not to do anything that would upset not only the groups but AA. We're not to put any publicity out there in a sense. We're not to make any announcements that are out there. And I know I'm getting into other areas of tradition, but we're not to be in conflict with AA in any way purposely to hurt AA. If we can at all avoid it. And that's what this tradition is all about. It's so that we could be conscious of one another's feelings and what each other are doing, so that we're not in conflict with one another, that we're all there for the same reasons. Getting the sick and the suffering help when they need it. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Larry. Nice job. Thank you for your service. So now it's time for our weekly installment of That Ain't in the Book. And we hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as it's described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what follows is one of the things we often hear along with what the Big Book has to say. And one of the things we hear in the rooms a lot is there are no musts in AA. Lisa, can you come in and tell us what it says on page 99 in paragraph 3?
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. If their old relationship is to be resumed, it must be on a better basis, since the former did not work.
Thank you.
And as we study, please make use of highlighters, pens, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight we are going to start our recap on page 129, starting with the opposite may happen, and end on page 131, and that will be read by Donald, followed by our study portion on page 131 at the very beginning, and end on page 133, demonstrate his omnipotence, and that will be read by Susan. After the page, after the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back on our study portion that was read by Susan. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer, split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we're going to read the material once through, and then we'll dissect the information a second time using the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example, with a sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
And how we arrived at this point. This is a 94-week study, folks. It takes us several weeks, almost a year and a half, to get through the entire book. And we start studying on the title page. And that's where we find our first promise. How many thousands, how many hundreds have recovered from alcoholism. And we study about a page and a half or 2 pages each week using this question and answer format all the way through the prefaces, the forewords, the first 164 pages. Plus we use the same format for Dr. Bob's Nightmare, the traditions, and then we also visit 3 different times where the asterisk directs us, Appendix 2, a spiritual experience. And then we also use the section, those 2 pages, Appendix 2, as our final week, week 94, because that spirituality is so important in our program. And when we get to the end of that, we cycle back and do it again. So we're in the middle of our 3rd season doing this, and we are coming up on our 5th anniversary of being a Zoom group. We opened in person, but now we're 100% on Zoom. So for those of you who's come back, I am so glad to see you coming, because every time we go through, I always find something new. And for those of you who are new, I hope we see you again.
All right, and before we start the recap, we'll need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you would like to be one of our answer readers. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website and our YouTube channel.
And Donald, come on in with our recap, please.
Good evening, everyone. Donald, recovered but not cured alcoholic, starting on page 129. The opposite may happen should the family condemn and criticize. Dad may feel that for years his drinking has placed him in the wrong side of every argument. But that now has become a superior person with God on his side. If the family persists in criticism, this fallacy may take a still greater hold on Father. Instead of treating the family as he should, he may retreat further into himself and feel he has spiritual justification for so doing. Though the family does not fully agree with Dad's spiritual activities, they should let him have his head. Even if he displays a certain amount of neglect and irresponsibility towards the family, it is well to let him go as far as he likes in helping other alcoholics. During those first days of convalescence, this will do more to ensure his sobriety than anything else. Though some of his manifestations are alarming and disagreeable, we think Dad will be on a firmer foundation than the man who is placing business or professional success ahead of spiritual development. He will be less likely to drink again, and anything is preferable to that. Those of us who have spent much time in the world of spiritual make-believe have eventually seen the childishness of it. This dream world has been replaced by a great sense of purpose, accompanied by a growing consciousness of the power of God in our lives. We have come to believe that He would have us to keep our heads in the clouds with Him, then our feet ought to be firmly planted on earth. That is where our fellow travelers are, and that is where our work must be done. These are the realities for us. We have found nothing incompatible between a powerful spiritual experience and a life of sane and happy usefulness. One more suggestion. Whether the family has They may do well to examine the principles by which the alcoholic member is trying to live. They can hardly fail to approve these simple principles, though the head of the house still fails somewhat in practicing them. Nothing will help the man who is off on a spiritual tangent so much as the wife who adopts a sane spiritual program, making a better practical use of it. There will be other profound changes in the household. Liquor incapacitated father for so many years that mother had become head of the household. She met these responsibilities gallantly. By force of circumstances, she was often obliged to treat father as a sick or wayward child, even though when he wanted to assert himself, he could not. For his drinking placed him constantly in the wrong. Mother made all the plans and gave the directions. When sober, father usually obeyed. Thus, mother, through no fault of her own, became accustomed to wearing the family trousers. Father, coming suddenly to life again, often begins to assert himself. This means trouble, unless the family watches for these tendencies in each other and comes to a friendly agreement about them. Drinking isolates most homes from the outside world. Father may have laid aside for years for all normal activities, clubs, civic duties, sports. When he renews interest in such things, a feeling of jealousy may arise. The family may feel they hold a mortgage on Dad, so big that no equity could be left for outsiders. Instead of developing new channels of activity for themselves, mother and children demand that he stay home and make up the deficiency.
Excellent. Thank you, Donald. And Susan, would you like to come in with our study?
Sure, Susan, alcoholic. At the very beginning, the couple ought to frankly face the fact that each will have to yield here and there if the family is going to play an effective part in the new life. Father will necessarily spend much time with other alcoholics, but this activity should be balanced. New acquaintances who know nothing of alcoholism might be made, and thoughtful consideration given their needs. Problems of the community might engage attention. Though the family has no religious connections, they may wish to make contact with or take membership in a religious body. Alcoholics who have derided religious people will be helped by such contacts. Being possessed of a spiritual experience, the alcoholic will find he has much in common with these people, though he may differ with them on many matters. If he does not argue about religion, he will make new friends and is sure to find new avenues of usefulness and pleasure. He and his family can be a bright spot in such congregations. He may bring new hope and new courage to many a priest, minister, or rabbi who gives his all to minister to our troubled world. We intend the foregoing as a helpful suggestion only. So far as we are concerned, there is nothing obligatory about it. As non-denominational people, we cannot make up others' minds for them. Each individual should consult his own conscience. We have been speaking to you of serious, sometimes tragic things. We have been dealing with alcohol in its worst aspect. We aren't a glum lot. If newcomers could see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. We try not to indulge in cynicism over the state of the nations. And we do carry the world's troubles on our shoulders. When we see a man sinking into the mire that is alcoholism, we give him first aid and place what we have at his disposal. For his sake, we do recount and almost relive the horrors of our past. But those of us who have tried to shoulder the entire burden and trouble of others, find we are soon overcome by them. So we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. Outsiders are sometimes shocked when we burst into merriment over a seemingly tragic experience out of the past. But why shouldn't we laugh? We have recovered and have been given the power to help others. Everybody knows that those in bad health and those who seldom play do not laugh much. So let each family play together or separately as much as their circumstances warrant. We are sure God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. We cannot subscribe to the belief that this life is a vale of tears, though it once was just that for many of us. But it is clear that we made our own misery. God didn't do it. Avoid then the deliberate manufacture of misery, but if trouble comes, cheerfully capitalize it as an opportunity to demonstrate His omnipotence. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. All right. And for our answer readers, please speak clearly into your microphones. We will ask the questions from our script by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff. The answers to the questions will be sentence by sentence, coming directly out of this week's study. Beginning with the first sentence and ending with the last one. If those answering questions lose their place, please allow me to redirect them to the correct sentence. If we're all trying to read correct, but nobody will hear anybody. All right. So let me get my batting order here. I guess I could have been doing that. Hang on 1 second. So I have Kenny, Nancy, Pinky, Susan, Art, and William, and Linda. Did I miss anybody? All right. Okay, starting with you, Kenny, back up at the top of page 131. Question. In the early days of sobriety, the mother and father should do what?
At the very beginning, the couple ought to frankly face the fact that each will have to yield here and there if the family is going to play an effective part in the new life.
Excellent. And Nancy, what will father find it necessary to do?
Father would necessarily spend much time with other alcoholics, but his activity should be balanced.
Okay. And Pinky, what kind of new acquaintances might be made?
New acquaintances who know nothing of alcoholism might be made and thoughtful consideration given their needs.
Thank you. And Susan, what about the community in which they live?
The problems of the community might engage attention.
Excellent. Thank you. And Art, what about the possibility of joining a religious body?
Though the family has no religious connections, they may wish to make contact with or take membership in a religious body.
Excellent. And William, could this prove helpful?
Alcoholics who have been religion people will be helped by such contact.
And I'll be coming in with a few comments, the first of which is a definition. Derided means laughed at, ridiculed, or held in contempt and mocked.
Thank you. And now, Linda, This is a two-part question. We're on page 132, still just one sentence. So now that the alcoholic has recovered, what may he find? And will he now agree with religious folks without question?
Being possessed of a spiritual experience, the alcoholic will find he has much in common with these people, though he may differ with them on many matters.
Thank you. And back to Kenny. If he does not engage in debate on religious matters, what will happen?
If he does not argue about religion, he may make new friends and is sure to find new avenues of usefulness and pleasure.
Thank you. And Nancy, what can he and his family prove to be?
He and his family can be a bright spot in its congregations.
Yeah. And Pinky, surprisingly enough, to whom may he bring new hope?
He may bring new hope and new courage to many a priest, minister, or rabbi who gives his all to the minister to our troubled world.
Thank you. And Susan, what is the intent of the foregoing?
We intend the foregoing as a helpful suggestion only.
Yes, excellent. And Art, what is our attitude on this matter?
So far as we are concerned, there is nothing obligatory about it.
Excellent. And William, with what religious body are we affiliated?
As non-denominational people, we cannot make up other mind for them.
That's right. And Linda, what should guide each individual in this matter?
Each individual should consult his own conscience.
Yes, thank you. And then Kenny, what have we been speaking of so far?
We have been speaking to you of serious, sometimes tragic things.
Yes. And Nancy, specifically, we have been dealing with what?
We have been dealing with alcohol in its worst aspect.
Yes. And Pinky, but we aren't sure, but we sure aren't what?
But we aren't a gone lot.
Thank you. And Susan, what would happen to newcomers if they didn't see the fun we have?
If newcomers could see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it.
That's right. And Art, what is it we really insist on?
We absolutely insist on enjoying life.
Yes, thank you. And William, this is a two-part question, still just one sentence. We try not to indulge in pessimism over what, and nor do we try to shoulder what?
We try not to indulge in citizenship over the state of the nation, nor do we carry the world trouble on our shoulder.
Yes. And Linda, when we see a suffering alcoholic, what do we do?
When we see a man sinking into the mire, that is alcoholism. We give him first aid and place what we have at his disposal.
And another comment, is this our primary purpose, to share our experience, strength, and hope?
Thank you. And Kenny, back to you. For his benefit, what do we do?
For his sake, we do recount and almost relive the horrors of our past.
Yes, and Nancy. But what do we not do?
But those of us who have tried to shoulder the entire burden and trouble of others find we are soon overcome by them.
Instead of picking up their emotional baggage to help them carry it, We should show them the spiritual solution to overcome it, so it becomes experience instead of baggage.
Yes, thank you. And Art, what do we think is useful?
So we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness.
I apologize, I skipped over a couple of people. I'm going to go back. Pinky.
Did you hear me? I was like, oh, that was my line.
No, I'm so sorry. But Pinky, just making sure everybody's paying attention here. How do some outsiders react to our stories?
Outsiders are sometimes shocked when we burst into merriment over a seemingly tragic experience out of the past.
True. And Susan, we should be able to do what?
Well, why shouldn't we laugh?
Right. All right, I'm going to skip you this time, and then I'm going back to William. Why is this?
We have recovered and have been given the power to help others.
What greater promise could we hope for than the one just stated?
And Linda, everybody knows one thing. What is it?
Everybody knows that those in bad health and those who seldom play do not laugh much.
Yes. And Kenny, so what should each family do?
So let each family play together or separately as much as their circumstances warrant.
And Nancy, of what are we sure?
We are sure God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free.
Notice in the middle of page 132 what we insist on. And now that we are sure what God wants it, that God wants it for us. We have been in agreement all the time. We just didn't know how to get his endorsement. And now we do.
Thank you. And Pinky, we cannot subscribe to what?
We cannot subscribe to the belief that this life is a vale of tears, though it once was just that for many of us.
And Susan, what is now clear?
But it is clear that we made our own misery. God did. Well, that's not my line, is it?
Nope, that's not it. That's okay. Art. To some of us, it came as a surprise to learn what?
God didn't do it.
Right? All right. And William, this is a two-part question, but still just one sentence. What are we to avoid? And then, but if it does come, how do we treat it?
Avoiding then the deliberated manufacture of misery, but if trouble comes, cheerfully capitalize it as an opportunity to demonstrate this omnipotent power. Omnipotent.
Omnipotent.
Omnipotence. I love it. Omnipotence. Excellent. Thank you, William. And that is the end of our study portion. So if you have experience with the portion of the book that was just read, please feel free to share. Please be mindful of your time and that others may have their hands raised and are waiting to share. A friendly reminder as we share, absence of profanity offends no one. And we are now open for comment, questions, observations, and spiritual experience based on what was just read. Can I get any hand? Who's going to kick us off? Yay! Come on in, Pinky. You're muted.
Okay. Thank you, Shayna, for taking the meeting, and Trish. A Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. And you know what? We just read that. You guys aren't surprised how many people comment on when we say that. But this part of the reading, and this is the first time I've studied it this way, in here, that I've marked up my book this way, but there is so many, I think I shared this last week, like, God's really showing me where the promises are. The fruit of the labor, right? Like, that's the best way that just came out of my mouth. I'm not a religious person, but, in the sense that I know this book, I can reference, but, like, there's so many rewards to following the directions in these books, or in this book, and I call them promises, because there's warning too. And since I've had this change in perception, just, because I've studied the book before, but for me, it's just so much more hopeful to be reading it this way, and many of these I've experienced as a result of the work, because the family afterwards, for me, it's a lot of repetition of working with others. You're just switching out the people. Like, I don't know what game you switch people out in, but if you think about a board game, like, I'm using the same skill set, just in a different environment. And I've been able to do that, like, with many things outside of alcoholism, right? Like, and so it's just pretty cool, because it is really simple. I've overcomplicated so many things in life for so long. It's like, the more that's revealed to me, it's just like, but I couldn't see anything other than complicated. Trish, I apologize. I was supposed to be doing the timer. But, like, there's just so much up there, and it's continuing to get, like, I can't even remember to do the timer, but anyway, totally lost that one. But for my personal experience, I can say that, many of you, know that, I've been granted the opportunity through the courts, the proper authority, right, to reconcile my relationship with my oldest daughter. And so I'm using parts of, like, and even hearing the stories as they're written in this chapter have helped me, because, like, I'm really it's not about me, it's about me putting myself in her shoes, and what is she experiencing, and how can I move to help her, because the other person isn't moving in her best interest, right? Because he is a sick person, and I have a tool for that. It's called the anger, resentment, forgiveness prayer, which we slang as the sick man's prayer on page 67, right? So, but in my interactions with her, I get the opportunity to fit myself, to be of maximum service to God and her. So, sorry, got distracted, the dog started barking. But, yeah, it's really cool how, I'm understanding it, and I get it today. I can't say I get it, but, I'm understanding it better than I ever have, because I'm receiving these guarantees or promises that are in here as a result of taking the action and heeding the warning. And I know that God wants me to be happy, joyous, and free. I know we're not a going lot. And I'm so thankful that I'm sitting up, and on screen with you guys tonight, because it's not like that every week, sometimes I'm down, and just thankful to be here at those. No. at those times to listen, but like what a blessing that even when the health opportunities wanted to come in and attack this afternoon or a few minutes ago, that like my higher power is protecting me. I prayed before I came in, asked him to remove the fear of not being able to sit through here and learn what he wants to teach me, right? And here I am. So, all right. Thanks for letting me share. I'll take over now, Trish. Thanks.
I love the music. Cracks me up every time. Thank you, Alyssa. And Jamie.
Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic, and welcome to everyone who is new to Primary Purpose, and I hope you will find something here with us that will change your life. And thank you to all who have been coming back for the last 5 years and continue to be hungry for the information in the book. Thank you to those of you being of service tonight. You know, I absolutely love, well, there is no favorite part of my book because the book is my favorite. But I love these passages. And tonight, this gives us so much meat and it covers so much area in just a page and a half, page and 3/4. You know, and one of the things that it does is it gives us a simple reminder that these are suggestions, right? However, much like jumping out of an airplane, it's also suggested that you don't put your book bag on, you put a parachute on instead. And those are good life-saving suggestions as well. Just a couple of simple things. I love that it affirms that we are non-denominational, because so many people come to Alcoholics Anonymous and they hear us talk of God, and then some of us come in and we talk about the churches that we grew up in, which is denominational and so on, and they see us as a religious program, but we are not a program of religion. We are most certainly a program of spiritual change and spiritual practice. As I go through this chapter, here's what I have to remember. And you know, there's many people that think the program is done at page 103, that the lost chapters to wives, to the family afterward, to the employers are not part of the program, but they absolutely are part of the program. This is where I get to practice these principles, the first 11 principles, in all of my affairs. And at home is one of the most important places for me to practice these principles. With my wife, when I had one, with my family, even though I don't live with my family anymore, I still have to practice these principles with my family. In my work, I have to practice these principles. And, you know, so those of you who are new, you see a bunch of pickles hanging around, pickles in my truck. You haven't even seen my living room yet. And a bunch of us, Nancy's got pickles on her wall and so on and so forth. We are having fun being the pickle people. And if it wasn't for alcohol and me becoming pickled and never being able to be a cucumber again, I wouldn't be one of the pickle people. So we have a lot of fun with it, and we laugh and we joke. But you know what? When the rubber hits the road, and in this particular group, and I don't know another group like us, because we spend hours in fellowship, and somebody comes in and they're struggling with a problem, and we're just talking and doing idle chit-chat. Boom, all of a sudden everything stops. All the attention goes to helping that person with the problem and opening the book and trying to be helpful and help them find a solution. Which brings me to this. We are not a glum lot, because I have learned how to laugh at myself and to be silly. And I just want to touch on the end of the end of tonight's reading. You know, I have been in Alcoholics Anonymous a long time, and I heard people go out and say, well, I got drunk, it must have been God's will. Or, I don't know what God's will for me is, but the book gives us a pretty good definition. We believe that God's will for us is to live happy, joyous, and free. So I'm absolutely convinced if I'm doing the things in my life which make me feel happy, joyous, and free inside, I must be doing some semblance of God's will in my life. Boy, I wish that timer was a little longer. I'm going to go over a second here, folks. So, for me, those things are serving my God and serving His children. Those are the things that truly make me happy, joyous, and free, not serving self anymore. And I want to touch on this too. It's where it talks about we must therefore avoid the deliberate manufacture of misery. Anybody ever go to the carnival or the state fair and see the taffy pull machine? That's how my little factory works, and it's mixing and you drop a little color in and you drop some flavor in and it's mixing till none of it makes sense and it's absolute chaos. But I love how it says, when these things happen, let us use it as an opportunity to demonstrate His omnipotence. And here's what I know. As a result of living by the principles of the program, today I live in this attitude of everything that happens in my life is an experience that I'm supposed to have, and it's all part of the journey. And what lessons can I learn from it? Sorry for running over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. And Larry. Scuba Pickle.
Yeah, I'm Larry. I'm an alcoholic. I was looking at when we was reading this, when it was talking, a few things jumped out at me, Father will, when we first come into this thing, we're so, engrossed with new friends and new people, especially, alcoholic family, and we spend a lot of time, with alcoholics, and it takes a lot of time to balance our lives, especially those of us that have families, kids and grandkids and people outside of AA and those of us inside of AA. If it takes a while to get some type of a balance, but a balance finally gets met where you learn. But at first, it takes the newfound friends of Alcoholics Anonymous, because they're your lifeline, and I had to go through that process. I remember early on in the first couple years of learning that balance of my alcoholic family and my outside of alcoholic family. Another thing that I had to come to terms with is my distaste for church people. I had a discrimination against church folks, and it was a natural discrimination against religion, especially organized religion and church in general. And I had to learn to overcome that, because there was a lot of things that I could learn from religion and church community. But it took time for me to get over some of those prejudices. that I had against it. But through this program and through my sponsor, I was able to get over a lot of that prejudice, a lot of that discrimination. And with help from my sponsor, with help from other people in this program, I was able to do that. And now I have a wonderful group of people that I meet with on a weekly basis outside of AA that are church people, church community that add to my life spiritually. And but you know, I had to learn not to talk about religion to them. I couldn't try to talk AA religion to them. I couldn't try to get over my point with them. I had to keep it separate, you know, and I had to learn that. Another thing that I saw in here was, you know, I had to learn how to, you know, get over the horrors of my past, because I had a lot of trauma and a lot of horrors, but I had to learn to laugh about them. I had to learn how I could laugh about them, and when I could learn to laugh at myself, then I could learn to laugh and when I could learn to laugh about my misery, then I could help other people in their misery. Nobody, you can't help anybody unless you could learn to laugh. You know, there is something to be said about the saying, laughter is a good medicine, because it truly is. And we're not a glum lot. And to me, when I learned to laugh and I learned to be happy, joyous, and free, it was just it just opened the floodgates for me helping other people in this program in a great way. That's all I got.
Thank you, Larry. And Paula, come on in.
Good evening. I'm Paula, and I'm an alcoholic. You know, I love this reading, and what I focused on a lot was, at first, was this sentence: he may bring, speaking of the alcoholic, he may bring new hope and new courage to many a priest, minister, or rabbi who gives his all to minister to our troubled world. You know, it's that I've never seen that sentence before, and it was very interesting to me because that has been my experience at church. So I had a real resistance to going back to the religion of my childhood before AA. And now I've been able to do that. One of the joys in my life is that I have that, and I'm a member of a church community. And when I speak with priests about spirituality, their eyes light up. I've never seen anything like it before. And it's not me, it's that it's a program of attraction. You know, we're talking about spiritual things that are very relatable, and the way we help people for you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas and things that go on throughout the year. And so I'd never seen that AA recognized that we could actually be of some help and bring some uplift to people who do this every day as part of their vocation in life. So I loved seeing that sentence. And then, you know, like everybody has talked about, we're not a glum lot. When I came into AA, life was deadly serious for me. I mean, really serious. The word fun, the fun meant working overtime, Saturdays and Sundays, you know, being being pretty diligent with work, and that was my fun. I didn't know how to have fun. And, my first meeting in AA was by accident. I walked into what I thought was an Al-Anon meeting, and it was an AA meeting. And I sat down, and I heard all this laughter going on. And, the speaker was somebody who had killed someone in drunk driving. He was driving drunk and he'd killed someone. And for what he did was he went to the local hospital. One of his services was he would be at the local hospital, the emergency room, when alcoholics came in and helped them that way. And so people weren't laughing about that. They were relating to some of the things that go on and how we actually recover. And so it's pretty remarkable when we start to laugh, because as a result of doing the fourth step and seeing all these character defects, we identify with one another. And because we have recovered and are no longer behaving that way, we can relate to people, and maybe some of that is truly laughter. And it's very healing and very helpful. And so the last thing I want to say is what some others have said. We don't make our own misery. I used to. I was my own worst enemy, and I was the problem. I didn't see that then, but I was the problem. And God didn't visit any of that on me. It was as a result of choices that I made in my life. And so I love about avoiding the deliberate manufacture of misery. To me, that can be drama, the story that surrounds some behavior or things that are going on in my life. But I've pretty much learned to focus that now and just keep the noise away and just focus on what I need to be focused on, which is usually God. I mean, it's always God, right? But if trouble comes, and it does, because we're not immune to life, life happens and we're human beings. But so if it does happen, we can capitalize on an opportunity to demonstrate how God works in our lives. And for me, that's, talking about how the 11th step works for me, or how my relationships heal, and or sometimes not. I focus on the solution with people, and when I do that, there's healing rather than focusing on the problem. So this is an absolutely remarkable program, a wonderful reading, and thank you all.
Thank you so much, Paula. And Miss Linda.
My name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. I wasn't going to share, but after listening to everyone, it's some powerful shares around the room. So much wisdom, and I can really understand, and I can identify. I identify with a lot, with the laughter and how it heals us. When I shared about the most horrific things I've done, if people in the rooms didn't laugh at me, I would still be riddled with guilt and shame. That released me from my guilt and shame, because that laughter, they weren't laughing at me. They were laughing with me because they could identify the insanity. And it's like, yeah, we understand. The only one that would do that is an alcoholic. One lady shared how she was cleaning and she, some kind of way, ended up burning the house, burning her practically most of her house up. And she said it was a result of her drinking, thinking that if she put fire to certain things, it would disinfect it. And she said, who does that? And everyone was just cracking up laughing. And it's like, if you're not in AA and you come into AA, and you're going to think we're a bunch of nuts. You're going to think we're crazy. But we are the only ones that can understand. It's like, I get you. And that's why I always tell women, if you're doing that fourth step, please do it with another woman. Because it's a different kind of situations. It's certain things that other women, that we can identify with. It's that women type of issues, lifey issues. And that male sponsor may not understand. He can help you with other things, but certain things He's just not going to be able to. You know, the same thing with if a man has a woman sponsor, he needs to have a man sponsor. You know, and I was told a long time ago, they said, Linda, a woman will teach you how to love yourself and a man will teach you how to love him. So you better get with the women. You better get a good relation with women so you can learn how to love yourself, learn how to relate to women better, and learn how to relate to your daughters much better. And when I started practicing and living these principles, that's when I learned not to be pushy with them, not to judge them, not to be bossy, not to be in their life, not to criticize. I don't have to criticize because one daughter is really big and the other one is really thin. I don't have to criticize them. It's none of my business. It is not for me to criticize and hurt another person's feelings. You know, I have to be mindful. And this is what AA taught me. You know, and when I came into the rooms, there was so much laughter. When I got my first 30 days, they were like, you got 30 days? Oh, Moses is going to part the water. And people were cracking up laughing because it took me so long to get 30 days. I kept relapsing over and over. And no one said, get out of here. You failed. You didn't get it right. We don't want to be bothered. You know what they told me? Keep coming back. Keep coming back. Eventually, you will stop drinking. Eventually, you will stop. And you will stay stop. That was the main thing that I heard. Stay stop. That's what I wanted, to stay stop. Because I could always stop, but then I'd start again. So, I mean, this program is just, I don't know. It's very spiritual. There's a lot of things that go on we can't explain. We can't explain how some people that, and there was a lady that did continuously relapse. She died, and she died as a result of being HIV positive, but she helped so many people. She helped me. She helped so many people. And she had a good message of recovery, and she didn't play around with recovery, but she couldn't stay sober herself. You know, and this is where they say the disease is centered in our minds. Some of us need more help than AA, you know, and some of us are just, that's it. We're just not going to stop. But we can turn around and tell the next person and tell them don't play with this program because we know the rabbit hole that we're going down. You know, and I love the part where, I forgot. It was a gentleman, he was just sharing. It might have, who, I don't know. I think it was Scoot Larry. And he shared about that, you know, that laughter, you know, and that healing. And I love hearing about that. And, you know, when I was first in recovery, when I was doing service, and people didn't understand, my family didn't understand, where are you going? Why are you dragging your kids there? Who are you talking to on the phone? They didn't understand. They didn't understand. When I was helping other newcomers, they told me, they said, if you got 6 months, you're going to help people with 1 day. Somebody with 1 month. And that's what I did. That's what I did. You know, and I've always done that. And sometimes I'll sacrifice my time with my family. You know, because my primary purpose is to stay sober and to help another alcoholic to achieve sobriety. I can't get you sober, but I can at least plant the seed. You know, I'm just so grateful to be sober, and I'm grateful for what everyone said. And I'm glad that young lady shared about her daughter, and she shared about she has a solution to that. Forgiveness and that prayer. I was like, wow, that was so profound. You know, that is our solution. You know, grab one of those prayers, you know, and forgiveness, that we don't have to continue with that anger in our heart and fighting against someone that's sick and suffering. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. And Gemma, come on in.
Sorry about that. Gemma, alcoholic, amongst other isms. I got my book today from Jamie Pickles with the chip and a pen. I'm so excited. I have so many thoughts rambling around my brain, but a big one is if something disturbs me, it's probably trying to teach me. And growing, the whole faith thing and religion, I grew up without faith and religion, and it was not allowed in our home. I got beat for asking who Jesus is or any type of religious thing. And, you know, having atheist parents, sorry, having atheist, I have an audio device that's trying to pick up my audio, sorry. So, it's interesting because so many people come into the rooms with terrible wounds from religious upbringings, and I completely identify with using religion as like a belt of, you know, ridicule, or, you know. And I grew up with partly Hispanic home, and my auntie, my tia, she always had a wooden spoon in her purse. And then I grew up in an all black home, and I didn't know I wasn't black or you know, Hispanic. Um, and the black home was the lovely home, and there was always Malcolm X playing, or Martin Luther King, and, you know, and there was all these different types of religious leaders, and I loved it. But when I'd go back to my home, I had to leave all that. I had to leave, you know, the great speeches, and I got to go to the Baptist church. It was an all black church, and singing, you know, so much fun. And then I go home, and it was like I wasn't allowed to experience any culture at all. And so, you know, my mom was Native American, and I think my grandfather, you know, I think he wanted to protect me from being a hippie. I'm not trying to be rude, but I think he thought I was going to end up a hippie because my mom wanted to name me after, you know, two wolves. I was born under the sign of the wolf and all this stuff, and they refused it. And then to protect me from becoming a hippie or, you know, whatever, I wasn't allowed to learn anything. But, you know, he was that way before I was born. He just didn't like religion. He hated the Catholic Church. So, you know, I had all this confusion in my mind about people, not about God. So I've learned that people are all, you know, you see a friend, they post a car on Facebook and they said, my new whip, a work in progress. It's like a beat up car, but it's something good to them. Well, I'm a whip, and everybody's a whip, right? We're all a work in progress. So anyways, I cherish all the different homes that I grew up in, but it was so hard for me. And no wonder I ended up an alcoholic that was drinking to numb my feelings, because I wasn't ever, I never knew what feelings I was allowed to have. You know, I mean, when I was in the black home of my uncle and my aunt in Oakland, I was a strong black queen. I would not know that I wasn't black. How confusing for me as a kid. And then when I was in an all Hispanic home, my uncle was the head of the Mexican American Heritage Parade. And I didn't know I wasn't Mexican. But it's like we come in from different stories, right? And so faith in God and people that let me share this craziness helps me put my story together. And I don't really know who I'm going to be when I grow up, but thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Gemma. And Art, come on in.
Hi, everybody. My name is Art. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. And I like to quote this part of the book, and I don't really quote it. I just kind of paraphrase, particularly the part that talks about avoiding the deliberate manufacture of misery. And you know, earlier in the book, and I can't tell you where it is, but it talks about that most of our troubles, we think, are of our own making. And that's what's referred to there. But the other thing that I wanted to comment about is the you know, in the 11th step, it talks about praying for knowledge of His will and the power to carry it out. And early in my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous, there was a lot of discussion about how do I know what God's will is. And so I was sitting in a book study meeting one night, and this was read, and I thought, that tells me what God's will is. I don't have to debate it any longer. God's will is that we be happy, joyous, and free. Now the question becomes, how do I get there? And, you know, when I first came into the program, I thought, this is before I even got sober, I thought it was a strange bunch of people, and they laugh at most inappropriate times, and they, you know, they're laughing at each other's horror stories. And I didn't understand it. I thought that was terrible. How can you laugh at some tragedy in somebody else's life, not realizing that that's how we identify? And so when it talks about we're not a glum lot, and that we absolutely insist on enjoying life, that's part of it. And that's part of how we get to the place of being happy, joyous, and free. The progression of the steps shows me how to be free. The fellowship shows me how to be joyous. And happiness is something that I have a few references in the 24-hour day book that talk about happiness being not something that I can look for or seek and find, but rather a byproduct of the way I live my life. And so when I learned to live by the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps, I incorporate those ideas into my life, and I live those steps. It brings me happiness. So the way to get there is to, and Jamie touched on it earlier, that it's a way of measuring my progress. And I found that I can have joy and happiness and freedom in my life regardless of the circumstances. And you know, nobody ever told me, ever, that becoming sober would grant me immunity from life. Life happens and circumstances come along that are uncomfortable and we don't always know exactly how to respond to things that happen in life. But no matter what happens, when I learn to trust God, I find peace. And that peace brings me this happy, joyous, and free attitude. And it's something that just happens as a result of how I'm living. And so when I'm in that spirit, I'm in God's will. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Art. And William, come on in.
My name is William Alcoholic, and thank everybody for being here and helping me stay sober tonight. And whenever we read stuff like this, being a person who's been on both sides of the spectrum, I've been in the grips of alcoholism, and I've been in recovery. So I get a chance like going to the movie and seeing a movie, and I'm being the main character in the movie, So I get a chance to see how I made it through here, And I got to Alcoholics Anonymous when they were laughing in the room about what I said. It didn't go over. I didn't know they was identifying with me. I thought they was laughing at me. So it took some time for me to get there. So a whole lot been said today. And the thing about it, the way Bia do it, he taught us the step, but he teaching the family about identifying the behavior of the alcoholic, the behavior of the alcoholic in recovery, And he said a whole lot of things. And most important thing, what it said to me, the 12th step, is to practice these principles in all your affairs. Haven't had a spiritual awakening. Now, along the way, y'all taught me how to get a God of my understanding, And I remember in the chapter, We Agnostic, it said the road is wide and roomy now. Now, whenever I read, I do a lot of spiritual reading from the Bible today because I can see the inspiration coming from it today. And no longer do I have the fear of it. I have the being inspired by it. So practice principle all up there. And here he used and whenever he used the word yield, I've been driving ever since I was like maybe about 12, 13 years of age. And the word yield is to allow somebody else space. So he tell the family to yield, give him time, and like it talk about balancing out. Give him time, he'll balance it out, because that's the way I was when I first came around and seeing what was happening in my life, and I began to want it. I put a lot of time in Alcoholics Anonymous, because I tell you, I couldn't stay sober by myself, So I sit in the rooms, I came and sit in the room. As soon as I got off of work, I went straight to the room of Alcoholics Anonymous, And that's where, as I stayed here, I began to balance my life with the family and everybody else. But I have to learn how to stay sober first, And definitely, that word of God, the third step, plays a big part in my life today. It's no criticizing no other religion, because I say they talk about God. You can call it. He may have a lot of different names, but it's the love and the unconditional way that they put it out there. So I understand that today, and that makes me, and I find a whole lot of joy and peace in my life today, no matter where I'm at, and I truly believe it's an attraction to, I have a lot of people come up to me and speak to me today. Before people say, what's that on? But today, you know what I mean, and I use the program. So definitely the program worked, and I can see myself as we read this, how things begin to come together in my life because of the program, because of the step. So here he's telling them about certain behavior. You're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. But just give him his space. He'll balance it out sooner or later. You know what I mean? Don't get out that fire where you could, instead of being out there causing drama and talking all other kind of stuff, be a part of that. Find something you could do to help. Find something you could do. And my sponsor told me early on, say, do something. Don't just sit here, do something like all of mine. It's a whole lot to do. And what I learned, what was doing, it would prepare me to have a life outside the room. For that, I'm happy. I love my life today. Have a whole lot of peace in my life today because of that. And I can sit with anybody. I can sit with anybody, man, and find that peace in my life. Most of the time, if I don't have it, I know I have to look at myself and see why. Why it's not there. So definitely the program works, and definitely the recovery, for me, the recovery spread just like the disease did. Spread just like the disease did whenever, just like it spread through the family, just like it did for the family. When they talk about the family house, they talk about in the first part about how the wife took control, how the kids felt, all these feelings was all discombobulated and all twisted and stuff, and it began to straighten out whenever you put the spiritual program in out, and it takes time. Thank you.
Thank you. Trish, I saw your hand pop up and then pop down.
It did. I'll come in just a little bit. And then I'll save some time for Jamie. I'm Trish and I'm an alcoholic. And I love how the reading started out with balance. I had to find a balance between meetings and family and work and other activities. I couldn't do 100% one thing, because then the others would suffer. And it took a while to find that balance. And at different stages of my life, that balance was different. When I was single, there was a whole lot less balancing going on than married with children. But, you know, I had to find that balance. And when I didn't have that balance, it was usually my peace of mind, my happy, joyous, and free that suffered. And, you know, I'm going to tie together the we're not a glum lot along with the manufactured misery, because, you know, I was a glum lot when I came in because I was living in my own manufactured misery, but I wasn't willing to look at that until I got into the steps. That misery was always caused by someone else, something else. It had nothing to do with me. But once I got that step work done and I could take that honest look at me and I could realize that I did manufacture most of that misery. And once I was able to look at that for what it was, the guilt, the shame, and all the other stuff that goes along with it, and able to let go of it, I began experiencing that happy, joyous, and free. And that laughter, the belly laughter, which I don't remember having growing up, even before drinking. And then touching on trying to carry somebody else's burdens, and that comment of, instead of picking up their emotional baggage to help them carry it, showing the spiritual solution to overcome it. Because once that baggage becomes experience, and I have overcome it, I can use that to help somebody else. Otherwise, if I'm talking about it, I'm not helping somebody with it. I'm just trying to burden them with my stuff so that it's not so heavy for me. And, you know, I cannot be living happy, joyous, and free when I'm still lugging that old emotional baggage around. And once I get to that point where I can use that experience, that's where I get to show God and God's love and God's power to someone else, by showing how I got through this stuff, how I got through those 5, 6, 7 years of depression, self-inflicted. Maybe not the act that put me there, but the choice to stay there, that was self-inflicted. And I wasn't happy, joyous, and free. I wasn't laughing. I didn't want anything to do with anybody who was, because I didn't think I was ever going to get it again. But then once I got back into the work, once I found myself in the pages of this book, and found myself in the work, I could recognize that I can be happy, joyous, and free. Doesn't matter what's going on around me. I mean, today was one of those days that I'd like to write off. It was not really a great day. But it still ended on a good note. There were still times, what I would have called a few years ago, this was a rotten day, and you know, it was a day and it had a whole bunch of moments in it. But those moments don't have to define my day today. Those moments are now experience. And I'm not carrying them into tomorrow. I've already looked at the good in those moments, the good and the bad. But there are positives too. And I can't just focus on what went wrong. I have to look at what went right too. And that's part of that freedom, is recognizing the good no matter what else is going on. And when I see the good, I can see God. And just to touch on real quick, you know, I had a pastor a couple of years ago. We'd go out for coffee every now and then, every couple of months. And he told me at one of our meetings, I love when you call me because I know you're not going to just sit and complain. I know we're going to talk. I know we're going to have a good conversation. And I know that you're going to ask how I am and you're really going to want to know. And that if I have things I need to unburden, I can share things with you too. And, you know, it always makes me think, you know, the counselor at school, it's the same way. I'm one of the people she calls because she knows I can keep my mouth shut about whatever's going on in her life. And I often used to be seen as the strong one, and I would always wonder, who do these strong people go and talk to? I've got God, but now I've got everybody in these rooms too. And I can be strong, but I don't have to be so strong that I'm the tower that I can't fall down, whatever. I have to have other people holding me up. And I am grateful that today, through my experience, I'm now able to be the support to help hold others up too. Thanks.
Wow. And Jamie.
Hi, family. Jamie, what a what a great meeting, everybody. I just want to share a thought with you. There are 11 chapters in our big book. Trish already knew what I was going to say. We are in the 9th chapter right now. How do our lives look so far? But the 12th chapter in your big book is in the process of being written in your own life. What is it going to look like? Just a thought to ponder. God bless.
Thank you, Jamie. This has been a fantastic meeting. Grateful for everyone. And Trish, you're on.
I'm back on. I will read out our closing and then I will throw it back to you to pray us out. So from page 164, the last page in our book, before Dr. Bob's story, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. We will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. That's a prayer, folks. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find, and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
I love that page. What a fabulous meeting. Thank you all for being here. And we'll pray out in Lewisburg primary purpose fashion. We'll hold our hands on the screen. This is our virtual way of holding hands. Before I pray out, have a moment of silence for those of us that are still sick and suffering, both inside and outside of the rooms. Here is your moment. And who will take us from shame to grace if we let him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in
the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever
Forever and ever.
Amen.
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 Trish, don't forget to hit stop.
I will forget.
Yeah,
Night,
I always
everybody.
do. Thank you, everybody. Great meeting. Thanks, everybody.